Hi everyone, my name is Arun Katakam and I would like to take you on a journey with me to something I think we all care deeply about leadership, ethics, and the kind of workplace we want to build. This is part of my final video presentation for ethical leadership. Today, I will walk you through my analysis of a compelling research article titled How Upper and Middle Managers' Ethical Leadership Activates Employee Ethical Behavior. This article goes beyond theory and dives deep into the human side of leadership. Before we dive into the videos, let me briefly explain what is this article is all about and what my presentation is covered. The article titled How Upper Middle Managers Ethical Leadership Activates Employee Ethical Behavior was published in Frontiers in Psychology and presents a scientific data-driven look into how leaders can shape the ethical behavior of employees. The authors of this article collected responses from 270 employees working in manufacturing firms in Malaysia. Their focus was to explore whether ethical leadership from managers leads to ethical behavior among employees, and if so, how. Their answers was to perceptions of fairness, which they call organizational justice. This, just, this justice has four parts, which is distributive, procedural, interpersonal, and informational. What makes this study so interesting is that it connects academic theory with workplace reality. It's not just theoretical, it explores how managers will impact workplace ethics to everyday behavior, where it falls under fairness, honesty, clear communication, and respect. And now, for this presentation, the goal was to create a detailed personal critique of this article and deliver it in the form of a video presentation. And the ask was to break it into four parts: a general critique of this article, the perspective of an executive leader, and in the perspective of a manager or supervisor, and in the perspective of a staff or frontline employee. In each part, we were to reflect on what we learned in the ethics course, linking theories and debates and personal examples and course material to the article's finding. And the aim was to show how ethical leadership can be understood and practiced across all levels of the organization. Now we'll go to the first section of our video where it talks we talk on general critique. In this general critique, I will be talking about insights, theories, and real life relevance. In our class discussions, we explored how ethical leadership is not a standalone behavior, but a learned and socialized practice. This article ties directly into our lecture on ethical climate and organizational culture, where we discussed that ethical workplaces are shaped by consistent modeling of ethical behavior at all levels of leadership. The article's emphasis on justice aligns with our case studies on workplace bias, especially how interpersonal fairness can mitigate employee distrust. From our lecture on bias in ethics, we learned that when employees feel respected and informed, they are less likely to assume unethical intent from leadership decisions. The article reinforced this idea with evidence showing that interpersonal and informational justice were the strongest predictors of ethical behavior. Another point of connection is with the whistleblowing in the public sector reading, which stressed the importance of perceived fairness and safety in speaking up. In both the articles and our course material, ethical behavior isn't just encouraged by policy, it's nurtured through transparent, fair, and respectful environments. I have also seen this play out in my real life scenario. When fairness and respect were embedded in my past teams, people speak up more often, shared better ideas, and supported one another. That is the true measure of ethical leadership in action. Let's begin with a fundamental truth. We all want to be treated fairly, whether you are a CEO or a team lead or just starting out your career. In fairness, respect, and honest communication are critical to how we experience our workplaces. This article explores how leadership, especially at the upper and middle management levels, can influence ethical behavior among employees to what it calls organizational justice. What stood out to me is how relatable this study is. It's rooted in strong statistical analysis, especially data collected from 270 employees in Malaysian manufacturing firms using partial least square structure equation modeling, which is called PLS-SEM. But more importantly, the concept resonates with real workplace dynamics that many of us have experienced. The main message is if leaders behave ethically, their employees are more likely to follow suit, but only when they perceive the organization to be fair. The orders break down the fairness into four dimensions, which is distributive justice, where fair rewards, and procedural justice, where fair processes, and interpersonal justice, where respectful treatment, and informational justice, clear and honest communication. Of this, interpersonal and informational justice has the most significant impact on employee behavior. From a theoretical standpoint, the article links strongly with concepts we have studied in class. It reflects social learning theory with Bandura, which explains that employees model their behavior after ethical leaders. It also reinforces social exchange theory, where fairness inspires reciprocity, and ethical climate theory, which emphasizes the cultural role of leadership. I personally relate to this article in my banking career, where I witnessed how leadership choices can shape workplace culture. I remember one instance where a junior employee raised a valid concern about a transaction. Instead of being appreciated, that employee was sidelined. After that, others stopped speaking up. On the flip side, I have also worked under leaders who fostered transparency and mutual respect. That made all the differences in moral and ethical accountability. Statistically, the article was well executed. Reliability and validity were conformed to Cronbach alpha and composite reliability and average variance extracted. Bias was addressed through common method variance control and bootstrapping. In short, this article isn't just academic. It's a blueprint for real change in the workplace. It emphasizes the power of leadership to create an environment where fairness thrives and ethical behavior follows. And now this is the end of the first section. Now we'll be discussing on the perspective of an executive leader. In this topic, we'll be discussing on leading with fairness and ethical culture from the top level. This perspective ties closely to our class lecture on leadership style and theory, especially when we examined transformational and servant leadership. Transformational leadership leaders inspire ethical behavior to their vision, communication, and empathy, and qualities the article highlights as essential in activating justice perceptions. Likewise, servant leadership emphasizes putting people first and aligning directly with the interpersonal justice emphasized in the study. Our decision on ethics and compliance also stressed that real ethical culture comes from executive commitment, not just policies on paper. This is encoded by the articles emphasize on modeling fairness and transparency from the top. In our group debate, we discussed the role of leaders in rebuilding broken cultures after scandals, something this article provides guidance on. Now let's put on the executive hat and explore what ethical leadership looks like at the very top of an organization. As an executive, the biggest takeaway from this article is that my actions set the tone. Employees notice what I say and what I do, and how I respond under pressure. Ethical leadership is not just about policies; it's about presence and behavior. Let's take an example. Imagine your company is undergoing a restructuring, and you need to inform to the employees that they are laying off them. You can send out a formal memo, or you could meet with employees, explain the reasoning, acknowledge their concerns, and commit to transparency moving forward. That is informational justice in action. Similarly, interpersonal justice is not just about being polite. It's about actively listening and recognizing contributions and treating everyone, regardless of position, with dignity. As a leader, I would take steps to institutionalize ethics, create an internal ethics character, set up anonymous ethics hotlines, and include ethical performance in executive KPIs. I would also hold myself accountable not just behind closed doors, but publicly. If I made a mistake, I would acknowledge it, model collective behavior, and encourage a culture of learning without blame. Consider two examples. At Wells Fargo, pressure from senior leaders led employees to open fake accounts. Ethical concerns were ignored, and the scandal cost company billions, not to mention its reputation. And when we compare the same scenario that compare that to the Satya Nadella at Microsoft, who prioritized empathy and growth mindset. The shift turned Microsoft culture around and contributed to innovation and collaboration and ethical trust. This article isn't too theoretical or expensive to implement. It's practical. It's provide a leadership toolkit grounded in the data and reinforced by lived experience. As a future executive, I aim to lead with humanity, clarity, and fairness because ethical leadership is contagious. Now we go to the third part of the video, the perspective of a manager or supervisor. The daily practice of fairness. In class, we talked a lot about the pressures middle managers face, particularly in our ethical dilemmas and decision-making lectures. This article confirms that managers often feel squeezed between expectations from leadership and the need of their team. But it also shows that with fair procedures and clear communication, managers can be ethical backbone of an organization. The article also connects with what we covered in the ethical awareness and judgment section, especially how ethical decisions are shaped by consistency and perceived justice. When managers apply rules fairly and explain their decision, they reduce ambiguity, which in turn strengthens ethical decision making within the team. Stepping into the shoes of the middle manager, the article really hits home manager, home manager, article hits home. Managers are the daily drivers of ethics in action. We are the ones employees see most often. We interpret policies, allocate work, and explain decisions. One major theme from the article that spoke to me is the importance of procedural and informational justice at this level. How we apply rules, how we give feedback, and how transparently we communicate. All this shapes whether our teams trust us. For example, if I approve time off for one employee but deny another without clear reasoning, I'm undermining fairness. But if I explain decisions clearly, ask for input, and apply criteria consistently, I am building an ethical climate. In my career, I once supported a colleague who was unfairly penalized for flagging a risk. I elevated the issue with HR and ensured that retaliation didn't occur. The decision too uncomfortable signaled to my team that ethics matter more than politics. This article also acknowledges the real tension middle managers face: unrealistic KPIs, conflicting priorities, vague instructions from above. That is why training, mentoring, and internal feedback mechanisms are so important. As a manager, I would hold weekly feedback loops, set clear ethical goals, and use recognition system to reinforce fairness. Include integrity in team performance reviews. Ethical leadership at this level is about everyday behavior, how we respond, how we support, and how we lead. Now we talk about the perspective of the staff or frontline employee. In the perspective of the staff or frontline employee, practicing ethics as a frontline employee. This perspective connects directly to our sessions on personal ethical strategies and whistleblowing. We learn that even without formal power, our employees have influence through their choices, their voice, and their example. The article supports this by showing how staff respond to the fairness they experience in day-to-day interactions. We also explored the concept of locus of controlling in class, where internal locus individuals believe they can influence outcomes. This article reinforces that idea: when workers feel respected and informed, they are more likely to take ethical action, report wrongdoing, or support a culture of fairness. In our lecture on communicating ethics, we discussed how even simple communication gaps can erode trust. That is why the article's focus on informational justice is so important from a staff point of view. Now let's take a perspective of a frontline employee. When we think about ethics, we often focus on big decisions, but most ethical behaviors happen in small daily moments. Do I report that error? Do I speak up about something unfair? Or do I support my coworkers? This article gave voice to employee experience. It validated that interpersonal and informational justice, being treated with respect and being kept in the loop, matter deeply to how people act at work. I remember one workplace where a colleague pointed out a mistake that could have been costly. Instead of being appreciated, they were quietly punished. After that, everyone became hesitant to speak. Compare that to another workplace where honesty was praised even when mistakes were made. People shared ideas, flagged issues, and morale was high. As a staff member, I would be honest with my time and tasks, respect my team and company resources, and support coworkers who raise concerns. Ask for clarification respectfully when something feels unfair. I would also reflect regularly using our 7-step ethical decision making model from class: who is affected, what are my duties, and what does the integrity look like here. We also learned that laws like Canada's Criminal Code Section 425.1 protect whistleblowers, but fear still keeps people silent. This is where leadership matters. When ethics are encouraged, protected, and rewarded, people do the right thing. The article reminded me ethical culture isn't only built from the top down, it's supported from the ground up also. When it comes to the personal commitment to ethical leadership, it took me on this journey to leadership and ethics and organizational justice. This article, combined with what we have learned in the class, has shown me that ethical behavior isn't just about values, it's about structure, leadership, and day to day choices. As a leader, I will strive to communicate clearly and act with fairness. As a manager, I will protect integrity and set consistent expectations. And as a team member, I will choose honesty, support others, and reflect before I act. Ethics isn't a side project, it's the core of everything we do. When we get it right, people feel safe, valued, and inspired. And that is the kind of workplace I want to help and build. Thank you so much.